Joining us live now is Jessica Stern, U.S. Special Envoy to advance the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons, appointed by U.S. President Joe Biden. Jessica, thanks for being here and welcome to our city of Toronto. I understand you have a very busy agenda, so we definitely appreciate the time. We're kind of in this month of celebration, here in Toronto, also in the United States with Pride events, but we're also seeing a lot of tension, a lot of kind of re-emerging hate and backlash towards the LGBTQI plus community. What do you think, in your opinion, working as a special envoy to advance the human rights of this community is kind of the sole reason or cause that we're seeing this?
That's a great question, and thank you for having me on. I think it's a backlash to progress. I think that we've seen transformation during the course of our lives. LGBTQI plus people are increasingly accepted at school and at work. We have legal protections. But for some people, that's an opportunity to weaponize LGBTQI issues for political gain. But I know that the LGBTQI community and our allies, in the long term, we're going to win.
I mean, we've definitely seen the resilience of that community over the years, and Pride is as much protest. It's protest, it's celebration, and it's a look at the progress that's been made, certainly in the community as well here. How do you counter what's happening? And we know the differences between the United States and Canada. What are the sort of measures that you can take to try to counter the hate and the vitriol in some cases?
The number one most important thing you can do is invest in LGBTQI plus community-based organizations. They're going to be there whether there's funding, whether there's a friendly government, whether the media creates space for them. But the other thing that we can do is ensure that the government creates legal protections. So, for example, President Biden declared June as Pride Month in the United States. And that's a really powerful signal because it says wherever Pride happens, it's not just a niche issue, it's actually an American value. It's a national priority. So political leadership really matters in these situations.
And Jessica, we know that many countries around the world still criminalize homosexuality and, people in the LGBTQI plus community. So what kind of work do you do specifically on a global scale that helps people who are seeking asylum or refugees, even trying to come to America? How does your work help these people seek safety, essentially?
Thank you for that question, Jennifer. So I'm a senior State Department official charged with leading LGBTQI-related policy across the State Department's 77,000 employees worldwide. If I need to walk into the Secretary of State's office and tell him that there's a problem in a specific country, I have direct access to him. That takes many forms. One of the most important forms is ensuring that behind closed doors, when governments speak to each other, we're talking about LGBTQI issues. We're talking, for example, about the recent Anti-Homosexuality Act in Uganda, which the president just signed into law and would punish homosexuality with death and create a mandatory reporting requirement. So if you know someone who's LGBTQI, you suspect that they're your neighbor, you have to turn them into the police.
Wow.
How do those conversations go? And I realize you can't give us details, but I'm really curious because, how do you impose a sort of American or Western values or try to on a Ugandan government, for example, like that, where that is the belief of many people in that country and therefore you're trying to sort of counter that? How does that actually go? Because that's a delicate conversation.
I think that's the right question, but I think it's predicated on two myths.
Okay.
So the first is that the first myth is that there are only LGBTQI people in the West. That, of course, is not true. We know that. There are LGBTQI people in every country in the world. So when the U.S. government, or probably the government of Canada, works on LGBTQI issues in another country, the first people we talk to are the community leaders, right? And they tell us how to push, when to push, and how hard to push. The second myth is that governments don't talk to each other about human rights. And the truth is, governments talk to each other about everything under the sun. So if you exclude LGBTQI issues from the conversation, that is a statement of political values. And that is why, if we're talking about climate change, military cooperation, economic investment, we have to also talk about LGBTQI rights.
Okay, fascinating conversation. Jessica Stern, U.S. Special Envoy to advance the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons, appointed by, of course, President Joe Biden. Appreciate your time this morning and have a great trip in Ottawa. Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.